Welcome back, vinyl community. Got another finds update for you. Rock and don't stop. It's the Armageddon Rock, a band called Tony Benjamin and the I&I Band. It's a brand new 2018 reissue from the Archives recording label. Originally came out around 1981. Archive Recordings is kind of a low-profile label. They've kind of specialized in singles up till now, but starting to come with some LP reissues. UK reggae. The I&I Band has kind of a convoluted history, actually, but they actually began as a London group called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly in the mid-70s. They were renamed Reggae Regular, and under that name they released a couple of very early singles on the iconic Greensleeves label out of England, with Where Is Ja and Black Starliner, both making a big impact on the reggae scene. They came with their debut album around 1979 on the CBS label, now just credited to the Regulars. CBS wanted to kind of downplay the reggae aspect of the group. This was a LP that came with a bonus 12-inch single. Got a recent arrival here. A very nice album from them. Unfortunately, led to some kind of internal conflicts with the group. And a few of the members, led by Tony Benjamin, one of the singers and songwriters, split off and released this album as I&I Band. And the group would later kind of regroup under the name Reggae Regular a few years later with an album called Ghetto Rock. So this is a brand new reissue on Archive Recordings, 2018, fresh out of the presses. Got a few new finds to share with you guys. Very little going on with thrift vinyl, but I did find this one. This is Pied Pumpkin String Ensemble, just self-titled. I have another one by them called Alla Mode, Alla spelt A-L-L-A-H. They are a local Vancouver, BC area kind of folk psych, hippie folk group, I guess you would say. This is on the Squash label, early 70s. They were made up of Joe Mock, Sherry Ulrich, and Rick Scott. Joe Mock was in a Vancouver psychedelic band called Mock Duck. And just as an aside, I just found out the other night there was a rock festival in 1969 just down the road from me, like about 10 or 12 minutes down the road. I'd never heard of this before. And Mock Duck was apparently one of the groups that played there. Just kind of blew my mind. Apparently 30,000 people came there in kind of this out-of-the-way town out in the country. And Sherry Ulrich actually later joined the Hometown Band with Valdy and is fairly well known in Canada as a solo performer. But this is hippie folk country recorded at Simon Fraser University in Vancouver. So nice to find that one. The records are around, but they're sometimes hard to find in good condition. Some record store finds. Solomon Burke. I do not see Solomon Burke albums around in my area too often, so I snatched this one up. Found it in the cheap bins at a local store. It's a little bit on the expensive side for cheap bins, but still cheap. This is his one and only LP that came on the Bell label, Proud Mary, of course covering the John Fogerty song. And there's a testimonial from John Fogerty on the back saying how good his Solomon Burke's rendition of it is. Just deep-fried Southern soul recorded at Muscle Shoals. Very, very nice album. Found this one in the cheap bins also. I took a chance on it. Cover's got a little bit of wear, but it's otherwise in good shape. Full Moon. This is from 1972. What caught my eye on here was produced by Alan Douglas, who I know from the Douglas label, which did The Last Poets, John McLaughlin, some of those kind of jazzier, more underground leaning albums. And this is kind of a mix of jazz, rock, and yeah, they were former members of the Butterfield Blues Band, about 3 of them. So pretty cool stuff. Mix of vocals and instrumentals. That's on Columbia. Walked into one of my local record stores and found this in the new arrivals bins. Dennis Coffey, Going For Myself. It's his 3rd solo album on the Sussex label. It was quite cheap, under $10, so I picked that one up. He was a member of the Detroit Funk Brothers session band that played on a lot of the Motown hits in the late 60s, for going solo and scoring big hits with tracks like Taurus, which leads off this one, kind of funk guitar instrumental. Also in the cheap bins of one of my local stores the other day, I found this one, Rouge Shaba avec Louise Forestier. This is a Quebec album. I showed an album by Rouge Shaba quite a while back, several videos. I found one in a thrift store, and this album had actually been on my radar to pick up. This is on the Gamma label. This is from 1968. He is a Quebec artist, started out kind of in the chanson tradition before going to California in the late 60s and kind of having his mind blown by the counterculture vibes that were going on there, and returning to Quebec a changed artist. Quebec had been very insular up to this point. In the 1960s, it began what was called the Quiet Revolution, where they moved away from the domination of the Catholic Church, became increasingly secular, increasingly socially and economically cosmopolitan. It was kind of a cultural revolution. And he came back and put out this album with Louise Forestier, who was a singer-actress, kind of on harmonies. Very eccentric album. There's a quite jazzy feeling on several tracks. Apparently he does have a Montreal jazz band backing him up here. But just psychedelic, mix of rock, blues, bit of soul, just a bit of folk. Very cool album. And lead-off track is called California, about his time spent there. Found this one still sealed in a local store. It was kind of a blind buy. It was obviously Brazilian. This is Tribo Masahi. I found out this is actually an unauthorized pressing from 2015 or something like that, 2014, something like that. Tribo Masahi. It's apparently been described as a holy grail of Afro-psych. It's actually Brazilian, kind of Afro-Latin. Both sides are kind of long, free-flowing, tribal percussion-led jams with kind of chanted vocals going in and out. Very loose, very jammy, very tribal sounding. It was apparently, this guy, Embaixador, was apparently kind of in the acting business in Brazil, managed to score some free studio time, so kind of put this group together and recorded this album. It's actually been reissued a couple of years ago, apparently on an authorized edition, which might be one to check out. Tribo Masahi. Bit of a murky sound on that pressing, but apparently better than previous unauthorized editions. Another record fair find, a 12-inch single on Roy Cousins' Wambisi label, Reggae, out of the UK. This is a single by The Meditations, a well-known reggae vocal group, called Stranger in Love. Very nice lovers rock tune here, with DJ Charlie Chaplin on the flip side. Last vinyl find I'm going to share with you today was quite a surprising one in the new arrivals bin of one of the stores. Same one I got that 12-inch single at. This is a reggae one, Roy Richards on the Studio One label, Jamaica's Motown. This is his first album. Came out in 1972, with most tracks likely being recorded a few years before. He was a blind singer and harmonica player in Jamaica. Was playing around kind of the live scene through the 1950s, began recording in the 1960s, initially for Vincent Chin's Randy's label, before moving to Studio One, where he scored his biggest hit, which was a song called Freedom Blues, which was a cover of a Chuck Berry song called Freedom Blues. The reggae rhythm that they applied to this version of Freedom Blues would go on to be versioned many times over the years, probably still being done today. I imagine there's hundreds of different versions of that rhythm track. One of the most well-known ones came in the mid-70s at the Channel 1 studio. If you watched my Channel 1 video, I mentioned that one of the things that kind of set off the dance hall revolution in reggae was Channel 1's and other people's dusting off, applying a new lick of paint to old Studio One rhythms, and this is one example of that. They dusted that off and put it out again to underscore a track by DJ Tapazuki called MPLA, and an accompanying dub version by the Revolutionaries. But Freedom Blues, the original, classic, very American R&B influenced here. He's got covers of Gene McDaniel's 100 Pounds of Clay, kind of a doo-wop feeling on some tracks, as well as the Freedom Blues itself, which is more in the late 60s, early 70s American soul, kind of at the awakening of black consciousness, social consciousness, aspects of freedom, and political awareness. It's a very cool album by him. And as I said, not much going on in the thrifts for vinyl, but I did find a couple of nice CDs. War Anthology, the band War. Low Ridin' Funk 2-disc set with a very nice booklet and a complete career overview. That was a nice find for like $3 or $4, I think it was, at the thrift store. Also found Another Day Chess New Orleans. Similarly 2-disc set from the mid-90s, I believe, from the Chess label. This has got real early R&B stuff by people like Bobby Charles, Clifton Chenier, the Zydeco guy. Shout out to you, Steve. I know you like the Zydeco. And Eddie Bow, Clarence Frogman Henry. It's not every day you find something with Clarence Frogman Henry at the thrift store. So very nice to find this one. Don't have enough chess in my collection. Just kind of, you hear the blueprints of early rock and roll in here. It sounds very like that. Also, my recent Junior Biles video, didn't get this in time to show that in there, but I did pick up his final album, originally released 1986, Rasta No Pickpocket. This is a brand new reissue from the Omnivore Recordings label, out now with expanded track list. Very nice album by him. So apparently, kind of the cover looks idyllic. It was apparently recorded in a steaming hot studio in Kingston with crowded with the local Don, or gang lord, who controlled the local area, and all his enforcers in there, which they didn't know, the producer didn't know who they were, so asked for them to be removed, which caused a bit of tension there, but they managed to smooth everything over and invited him back in and settled everything peacefully. But I'll probably be showing a few more CDs in future videos. I'm finding them a lot more value for money than vinyl in many cases these days. But that's what I've got for you right now. There's still a few other new arrivals I haven't shown yet. Got some stuff in the pipeline on the way. Hope you've enjoyed, guys. Thanks for tuning in as always, and cheers. Take care.